All right, let's jump into it. So a little bit later this morning. What are we at? Sort of almost 10 to 11. So I mean, not super late in that, but yeah, just a little bit of a cruisier start to the day, to the session, and that after last night's events. So basically, quick recap of it all. CPI US came in. Expectations were 3%. Came in for the first time, I believe, in a long while. Let me just double check this fact, with a two handle. And if we look back, the last time, not even, so the records go back to December 22 and that. We got down to 3.1 a couple of times, most recently in Feb. But actually, so we've got a 3% back in July of 23. So it got very close, but for the first time came in as 2.9. So that's, the idea there is basically, look, inflation is moving in the right direction for what they want. They say 2%, which I think actually is in later time being sort of revised to a, 2 to 3% kind of target. So something with the two handle is what the Fed's looking for, and that's what they got. So interesting sort of price action around it. So a couple of things to sort of unpack with it. The initial drop of the data, like so we were coming down prior to it all. And this is the kind of thing you sort of think sometimes, like, when moves are happening before the data comes out, is it going to be something that is being preempted or telegraphed? And generally, you probably have a higher rate of things reversing back the other way, and that's exactly what we got. So even though we had that sort of tick down on CPI to 2.9%, we actually had this push down initially, and then it just fired back up. It was a bit of stuffing around, like it wasn't a straight away push, but actually it was straight off the bat. It did sort of turn around. If we jump onto a low time frame, you can see real quite quickly. Here was the point here, and it came down, and then it fired straight back up here, and then slowly ground down, ground down, ground down, till we tapped into this higher time frame support area, and then it just grinded back up over here. So, look, I think basically what I'm sort of reading from this is that sort of like obviously it was a fairly high expectation. We had PPI come in lower the night before, which we remember we said was the producer price index. So I think a lot of this move, like we'd come down, this is where we were a day beforehand when the PPI came out. A lot of that move had already been sort of probably sort of factored into it. Um, so Sorry about that. Yeah, so a lot of that move had kind of been sort of factored into it already. And I think sort of a lot of people were just sort of thinking, oh, well, you know what I mean? Here we go. That's the news. There's the strength. Well, I need the textbook responses to these kind of things. Let's just sell into it. And by selling into it, obviously they're buying US dollar, taking profit on their crosses. We had metals come off. We had euros sort of spike up and then come down. Aussie tested the highs, sold down. Silver tried to come down. So tried to move up and that hit resistance. Gold tried to move up, hit resistance. All these things sort of came off. And as all those things come off and people take profit on those things, selling into this idea that, oh, we're going to pump up. I mean, we're going to see US dollar completely sell off now, they sell into it. And this is what the market does. It's sort of like, this is why they say the game isn't easy with it all, because people that just look at textbook reactions, they're like, hold on, wait, but inflation was down, so US dollar should sell off. Now it's going up. I've just jumped on with a big position because I just know what I'm doing, and they get burnt and blown out. And this is what I say with these things. It's sort of like, if you just go off the textbook sort of way of doing things, like you're not coming up with anything new. The market knows this and they know how to just sell into that kind of stuff. They're using all your volume that you put into that position just to sort of take profits on their ones. And by that, I mean, of course, with the euros, the metals, even Aussie, even though Aussie's not part of this one, but it's still against the US dollar, these kind of things. Anyway, that's kind of my take on sort of what's happening. So I think this move coming through here is just that. It's just sort of selling into that sort of pressure. We saw metals come down, as I said, all these other things come down. I think that'll be short-lived because end of the day, you got to sort of think, look, interest rates is what's like, there's obviously a couple of factors, but one of the big driving forces with currency is the higher interest rate. And if you're going to be cutting, and it's like, you know what I mean, nothing's certain because, you know, they've been saying cuts here, cuts there all the way through the year. But given the wording at the last sort of FOMC sort of press conference and that, and, you know, just the talk around it all, the fact that inflation has now got a two handle on it, the idea that they want to try and balance the recession fears, they had the weak job numbers. You know, these kind of factors kind of make you think, well, cuts are pretty likely to be coming sometime soon. I mean, one of the majors that haven't done the cut yet. So if the cuts are coming, why would you want to be buying US dollar? Even if it is going to come back up over here, ultimately, you know, September's not too far off now. We're halfway through August. Um, we are going to see some more downside with it. That's not to sort of say that this bounce has reached its top. It could obviously sort of squeeze up a little bit higher. But the initial move is based off that, in my opinion. We came down, we've hit a technical area, and this is another good thing that I sort of say because you know there's two targets that you look at for these things. One, the wick fill down here, but two, body fills. And as you can see, here's the body fill into our area. That's why the support area here is the whole size of this wick because there's no set level through here where we know. So we just sort of say, look, that's kind of where the buyers were lurking. Come down here, buyers have had another shot again and have taken it off here. If we zoom out a little bit more, we could almost sort of see, as I said, this angle coming through here, kind of almost like it wants to be a channel through here. We did say if we got that push up last week, that this is where we'd be looking to sort of come up to sort of hit on this top side of the channel and then come back down. So look, that is even a possibility that we sort of grind all the way out through up here. I mean, it's only going to be another week or so. But you know, you can stop out a lot of positions through this time and take out these highs over here, hit the top of this channel, come back down again. That's a possibility. It's also a possibility that this is just a little flop up here, and then we see a rollover and a push back down over here. We've got to wait to see. We've got to see. So this alert that we had set yesterday, testing major lows, that came through there. So we can change this now and say, let's call this one a bit of a bounce recovery effort. If we get above here, then, you know, I think we're going to be looking. So let's change that. So it's 7.6. If we get above here, look, RSI kind of supports it. I change. Yeah, recovery effort. RSI supports it if it does want to sort of kind of go. And then we'd be looking probably back up over this area where we're just sort of finding sellers on this way down here. Generally with these sharp moves down, they get undone. So to tap into here and then maybe fall down. Yeah, look, there's a lot of possibilities. You just really, there's no point at this point just trying to predict because the thing is the reaction was, you know, for better or worse, just a bit odd. You know what I mean? Like you can sort of predict that this is, as I've just said, sort of that's my sort of feeling as to why the market moved the way it did. But till it actually does sort of confirm that, it's all just sort of speculation. So yeah, we'll sort of wait to sort of see how this plays out. But as I said, I think ultimately, you know, given the data the way it is, we will be going back down to test 101 in the sort of medium term kind of thing as to whether it's today or, you know, next week. You know, look, it won't be today, but look, as to sort of when it happens, that remains to be seen. We've got to sort of see how the market sort of takes this bounce. If they want to sort of grind it a bit higher, which is what DXY is pretty sort of known for, or whether they just sort of really just grind it sideways along through here. We also have retail sales out of US later tonight, which is another one that can give us a bit of a driver. Where we at here, sweet, and that's tipped to go up. So if the retail sales do come in a little bit hotter, i.e. moving up, then that would be another reason, potentially actually, like for the last couple of months and that, a year or so, high retail sales has been seen as a sort of thing to sort of bolster a currency because obviously too much spending, they want to keep down inflation, but if inflation's getting back to where they want it, sometimes the stronger data there could actually look. I still think if it comes in above, I'll be looking for a better US dollar strength if it comes in a little bit hotter. All right, flip across. We've got gold. So gold really tried and tried again. We had three taps into it, even as the data dropped, came up here, tapped in. This is where we know the sellers are. This is why we've put it here. Unable to sort of break through to get the new highs. We took out the most recent highs, but not the all-time highs. And subsequently, for three attempts through here, it's been dumped back down. And the pullback has been fairly shallow, to tell you the truth. If we sort of look at this now, and we look at this in terms of a move up through here, so you grab your kind of lows here, and you drag it up over here, we're still, I don't necessarily want to get rid of this one. Let's just put them out of the way for now, over here. We're still at the 38%, and it held. What you want to see with gold in the short term is back above 60. Even as it broke down, it came through here, retested 60, and that was its catalyst to go bang and drop down for this next leg down here. 40, what did we get down to? 38 low. So, it's a 40 buck drop off the top, but, again, this is an area that we sort of identified. It's been selling area, it's been support area, broke through. It's going to be a sort of resistance area yet again. And if we take out the lows at 37, then we're looking down probably into this little congestion zone down here around 20. So I would expect possibly a little bit of buying around this sort of 23 area if we break 37. I think that'd be the fair continuation. And that'd probably almost, if we look at some sort of like measured move through there, provided that's the top at the moment. It actually gives us a little bit further down, doesn't it? So if it does come back up and tip into that area, say that's the high now anyway, comes back down into this lower support area. So, between 12 and 20, I'd expect some sort of buying through. I'll put it through here. It's a fairly, 10 buck window. Those low buys are going to be here. So if we do get a break below 37, I think hold fire till 20, between 20 and 20 and 10, and sort of see how things react there. In saying that, as I said, I don't believe that this is an end of gold. I think this is just a moment in which, as I said, sort of like it was unable to break through. 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts. US dollar just rallied off its lows. Bang. It had to get the money from somewhere, so people took the profit here, put it into the US dollar, and that's partly what gave it a bit of a drive up. So I'm not looking for shorts through here. Yes, you got a 20 buck move down here if you want to try and take it, but I think the risk still remains risk. I guess so. The better risk reward is for upside moves here. So I added some at 50, 51. So we'll sort of see how we go through here. If we go above 60, I'm going to call this a little bit of a fake out. And of course, when you get a fake out move, the explosion to the other side is still generally quite strong. US dollar selling off, gold moving back up. I'm still looking for this play at the moment. Silver. Respected that channel, tried to get through, tested the most recent highs. Again, it actually held up a little bit better than gold did through that first periods just after the data dropped. Obviously, it smacked back down. It's come into an area, as you can see here. Previously, buyers have all been along through here. This is where the buyers have been. Buyers have been, came back down here. They had another shot at it. They are a buyer again. Break this low. Then we look down to, I'd say back over here, really, at least around this sort of under 27, put it that way, 2670. If you take out these lows down here, I think that's a fairly straight shot to the bottom side here. I don't think it's going to happen, to tell you the truth. I think this is moving, and I think it's going to recover and sort of push back up through these things. Obviously, it's easier to say that as we look at it right now. But actually, give that 1 second. I'm just going to check some positions. Yep. So look, it sort of is popping back into it at the moment. So that's where stops will be underneath this area here to come down here. Again, this is your top end here. So these are the two areas that you want to see break. Either here, let's call these zones just to, actually, you know what, to make, it's getting very multicolored in this chart. We can see that's where the buys are, that's fine. Let's put a breakout box over the top, because here and here, that's your play zone. And so breakout box. Break this area, either side of it, and I think we're going to get direction. The reason being, up above the top here, apart from the fact that you've got the two recent highs and that, and you want to see the sellers depleted at those levels, a third attempt out here will actually give us a pretty good close outside this falling resistance. That's the top side. Bottom side is, well, we broke down, is a bounce, there's the next leg, and we look down under 27. All right, and Aussie under a little bit of pressure. And look, I mean, this is why we mark out the areas where we think sellers are going to be. We can see it on the way down here. We marked it out, and was this within a pip or so coming over here. And if you actually bring that down to the body fill, you can see that it tipped in. Anyway, long story short, Aussie unable to break through 40. Tried a couple of times yesterday, sold back down. We've got Aussie employment data out in 25 minutes. Expectation is to come back down to, I think, pretty much the same as what we had last month as an expectation. So we beat quite significantly last month. Let me just grab up this data. All right, let me sort of do this without dragging. Actually, maybe I can drag this across. Here we go. Let's put it here. No, excellent. It's a bit easier. Everyone can see. So where we at? Wednesday. Here we go. So this is the employment data that we got coming out today. So this is what we're saying. Last time it was forecast to be 19.9, 20,000. It came in at 50.2. So that's a big beat to the top side. So previous 50.2 before it gets revised. These little arrows mean it gets revised, which it always does. 50.2 again. They're back down forecasting the same amount around that 20,000 figure. So question is, are they just going to have another big strong beat, or is it actually sort of going to come back down? I mean, if you just say 20,000 every month, eventually you're going to get it right. Given all the actual figures have been 30, 38, 39, 116, -6 in April. Not quite sure what happened here. I'm sure there's an explanation for that. But, 116, 38, 39, 50, throwing out 20, 30, 20, they're wrong a lot of the time. You got to say that. So if they're expecting it to come down to 20, previous was at 50, that leaves a fairly large room for margin of error. So if it comes in higher, I would say that's going to be strong for Aussie. If it comes in line, I think a continued sort of weakness in Aussie. But end of the day, look, Aussie is only going to run compared on what US dollar is doing on a broad sense. It's not really going to be sort of firing up and doing its own thing. If we have strong data that supports the Aussie, it just helps it when the US dollar is, selling off. It's not as bad. Or if it's if US dollar is being bought and Aussie's being sold off, then it's not as bad. But at the same time, if Aussie's doing a little bit better, US dollar's also selling off, then we'll get a double kick on that one there. Anyway, long story short, coming down into the zone here, so we've got 80 is where we've seen some buys previously, so we can mark out a little line here and say, look, that's where some buyers have been. Are we going to see some buying in this area? Look, hard to sort of say at the moment, just because we do have this data coming out. There we go. Let's call it a zone. So this is an area where we could expect some sellers. I'm trying to sort of think where else, because these aren't really very strong support areas. I would say if you can get it 80, that'd be great. Underneath that, 45. I don't see us necessarily coming down. I mean, this bounce has been quite strong, and you got to think, if you really take the lows of this bounce here, we're coming from down here and up to 40 over here. We're not even at the 23% yet. So I would say around this area over here, for any sort of downside move, I think we'll be bought up. But again, it depends. If they grind US dollar up for a couple of days, well, we could be looking down 55.40, maybe lower. I don't think so, but you can see some fairly decent areas of support coming through here. But as I said, at the moment, we seem to be sort of just testing the daily lows. Back above 66, I think brings it back into play, and we can sort of look back up to along those 40s for like a little bit of a range through here. If he gets up above 66, like this, I think this is a plausible play. If we do get a break of 80, then down here, and then I'd imagine some buying coming back from lower levels there. But yeah, at the moment, it's certainly just looking a little bit weak through this period here. So we'll have to sort of see how the rest of the session plays out. Typically, Asia's quite quiet, particularly after some larger bits of news and that sort of from the night before. All right, so where we at now? We got copper. Copper actually sort of held up very well through that period. It actually put in a new high while gold and silver was sort of floundering a little bit, but eventually it succumbed as well. And as you can see, it just came down the bottom side here. So look, it's still holding this little short-term rising support. Not really too much to sort of talk about with this at the moment. It is really just sort of starting to consolidate this bounce. We've got a fairly defined little high here. As you can see, came up and tested the previous highs, and then bang, came down through here as well. So let's drag this out a bit more. This would be a bit of a support area. We can see on the chart here, buyers held it above this area. We're back into it now. You break and close below here, well, you're looking back down at that sort of 4 handle for a test, I'd say. But for the time being, I think that's a fairly acceptable little range to look for direction. A close outside one of these will show us which way it's going to move in the short to medium term. And China broke back and down into the support area. Again, you're seeing US dollar so across the board sort of push up a little bit. This is helping it hold that support area. All these things will break at the same time. This will come down. Once it's underneath here, you'll see DXY coming and breaking its most recent lows that we just showed a moment ago. We'll see most likely gold and silver pushing up to break their sort of more immediate highs for silver, and well, obviously all-time highs are the big line for gold. All right, and I think that's pretty much it from me. Just a quick one today, just to recap overnight's events and that. I think main sort of thing to watch is to sort of see if they decide to keep grinding DXY higher. If so, going to hold fire on a couple of positions. If we do see a little bit of a quick recovery, then I reckon it could just be that was just exactly that. Sell into the power or sell into the sort of push that they had. Sell into the data that came out and that little sort of push, and then I'd expect the continuation after that. All right, that's it from me.